The Iraq War. A comprehensive overview. The Iraq War, also known as the Second Gulf War or the U.S.-Iraq War, began on March 20, 2003, and officially ended on December 18, 2011. It was one of the most controversial and impactful conflicts of the 21st century, shaping the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East and affecting global perceptions of U.S. foreign policy. This article provides a detailed account of the war, including its origins, course, and aftermath. Origins of the war. The Iraq War was rooted in a complex mix of historical, political, and ideological factors. 1. The First Gulf War, 1990–1991. The 1991 Gulf War, sparked by Iraq's invasion of Kuwait, ended with a decisive U.S.-led coalition victory. However, Saddam Hussein, Iraq's authoritarian leader, remained in power. The United Nations imposed sanctions on Iraq and established a no-fly zone, limiting Saddam's ability to control parts of the country. 2. Weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. In the years following the Gulf War, concerns grew over Iraq's alleged development of WMDs, including nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons. UN inspectors were tasked with verifying Iraq's disarmament, but their efforts were met with obstruction, fueling suspicions. 3. September 11, 2001, and the War on Terror. The September 11 attacks significantly shifted U.S. foreign policy under President George W. Bush. The administration adopted a doctrine of preemptive strikes to address perceived threats to U.S. security. Although there was no direct link between Iraq and the 9/11 attacks, the Bush administration argued that Saddam Hussein's regime posed a threat due to its alleged WMD programs and ties to terrorist organizations. 4. Regime change agenda. The U.S. had a long-standing desire to remove Saddam Hussein from power. In 1998, the U.S. Congress passed the Iraq Liberation Act, which declared regime change in Iraq a policy goal. This agenda gained momentum after 9/11, with Bush and key officials like Vice President Dick Cheney and Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld advocating for military intervention. The invasion of Iraq began on March 20, 2003, with a coalition led by the United States and the United Kingdom, supported by countries like Australia and Poland. The operation was code-named Operation Iraqi Freedom. 1. Shock and awe campaign. The initial phase of the war involved a massive aerial bombardment, intended to overwhelm Iraqi forces and cripple the regime's ability to resist. This strategy, known as shock and awe, was followed by a ground invasion. 2. Fall of Baghdad. Within 3 weeks, U.S. forces captured Baghdad. On April 9, 2003, the iconic statue of Saddam Hussein in Firdos Square was toppled, symbolizing the regime's collapse. Saddam went into hiding but was captured in December 2003 and executed in 2006 after a trial for crimes against humanity. Post-invasion challenges. Despite the swift military victory, the post-invasion period was marked by chaos and mismanagement. 1. Absence of WMDs. The U.S. and coalition forces failed to find evidence of active WMD programs in Iraq, undermining the primary justification for the war and leading to widespread criticism of the intelligence used to justify the invasion. 2. Insurgency and sectarian violence. The dismantling of the Iraqi military and Ba'ath Party created a power vacuum, leading to the rise of insurgent groups. Sectarian tensions between Sunni and Shia Muslims, suppressed under Saddam's regime, erupted into violence. 3. Al-Qaeda in Iraq. The chaos created an opportunity for terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda to gain a foothold. The group later evolved into the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, which became a major threat in subsequent years. 4. Reconstruction and corruption. Efforts to rebuild Iraq were marred by corruption, mismanagement, and a lack of coordination. Billions of dollars in aid and resources failed to stabilize the country or improve living conditions for ordinary Iraqis. Withdrawal and aftermath. The U.S. formally ended combat operations in Iraq in August 2010, transitioning to a mission focused on training and supporting Iraqi security forces. The last U.S. troops left Iraq on December 18, 2011. 1. Ongoing instability. The withdrawal did not bring stability to Iraq. Sectarian divisions, weak governance, and the rise of ISIS plunged the country into further turmoil. 2. Human and economic costs. The Iraq War had devastating consequences. Human toll. Estimates suggest over 200,000 civilians were killed, along with thousands of coalition and Iraqi soldiers. Economic costs. The war cost the U.S. trillions of dollars, with long-term impacts on its economy and global standing. 3. Geopolitical impacts. The war damaged U.S. credibility, particularly after the failure to find WMDs. It also shifted the regional balance of power, strengthening Iran's influence in Iraq and the broader Middle East. Legacy. The Iraq War remains one of the most debated conflicts in modern history. Critics argue it was a strategic blunder based on flawed intelligence and driven by ideological motives. Supporters contend that removing Saddam Hussein was a necessary step to address a long-term threat. For Iraqis, the war's legacy is one of profound suffering, with its effects still shaping the nation's political and social fabric. For the U.S. and the world, the Iraq War serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of intervention and the importance of thorough planning for post-conflict stabilization.